Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the eSports Resort. What did I just say? Report, presented by the Xbox One, the official console of MLG Courage. Joined by Max here in the studio on this beautiful Friday evening. Max, how's your day been going, my friend?
It's going pretty good. TGI Friday.
Living life?
Yep, living life, Jack. We have a great show for you guys today.
Yeah, I was excited. I came in today, got to take a look at what the script had broken down so far. And we're doing some power rankings. And basically, if you haven't been able to watch too much of the Pro League so far, we're going to really get you up to date on a lot of it and really which teams have been kind of below our expectations and which ones have been kind of proving us wrong from what we thought they were going to do in the beginning of the season.
Right. And, taking a look at ISO, they made a roster move after making a roster move a couple days ago.
Yeah. We're also going to take a look at that and then preview tonight's matches and, as always, our Vulcan picks. But first, really the news that happened in the last 24 hours. Isolation picks up Parasite as a sub. He winds up filling in on their team for Llama God. Here's a look at their roster. Well, what was their roster? Havoc, Silly, Dito, and Parasite filling that extra sub role they needed. Max, he joined the team, and in under 48 hours, things weren't going the best.
No, after UMG Dallas, Parasite was not happy really with Enigma 6 placing.
Yep.
And Isolation, we're playing with God RX in place of Llama God. Llama God will be missing, I believe, the next 8 to 10 matches of Season 3. So they figured, hey, Parasite's a free agent. Might as well try him out as a sub position.
Absolutely.
First night of matches went pretty well, but second night, shortly lived. Yeah, they pretty much got an annulment. It was very honeymoon phase is over. We have some quotes from Parasite and Dito on Twitter as they were getting into a little bit of beef last night about the team's performance so far.
Exactly. We announced the roster changes happening right after they went down. Here is directed at Dito. I'll never understand how hard it is for players to communicate while they shoot or are in mid-gunfight. It doesn't make any sense. Now, I believe he just tweeted that out, didn't tag anybody in it, and then the responses started coming in. Dito went right back and said, dude, we can call out just fine. You just get so annoying after a while. We don't need you to critique us 24/7. So that was back at Parasite. Then Parasite responded saying, dude, which everyone loves that word.
Dude.
I should never ask my team to talk mid-game. Also, scrims are used to get better. If someone isn't gonna care, why scrim? Dito went right back again. Or actually, I believe Parasite then had something else to say. You have someone on your team who is never happy and always making excuses for everything. A player that is impossible to improve with. And then finally, Dito answered right back, I respect your opinion, but we were doing just fine without you. Good luck with whatever you decide to do. Cut off. That was it.
I mean,
and that was 64 hours.
Were they doing just fine without him?
I mean, they showed up this past weekend, obviously with God RX as a fill-in. They had some moments of brilliance, obviously Havoc in that 1v4 at UMG Dallas. But outside of that, they're sitting at, what, 9th right now in the league?
8th, I believe.
8th in the league, yes. So it's just a squad that, yeah, they're new to this. They're new to the Pro League. Are they impressing us as much as we want? No. Did you expect them to be a top 4 team? No. But do they have the potential to do so? Yes. They still have that groundwork laid out. Right. But my question to you is, when it comes to your mind, who do you think they even can pick up for their new 4th?
I mean, I thought Parasite was a great pickup in general. He brings that star power to Isolation. They were really kind of lacking that really explosive, team leader player who could play the objective as well. Parasite was doing wonders for them in that first uplink of their first night of matches. But, I mean, in terms of just overall players, Apathy comes to mind.
Yep.
Apathy and Dito have teamed together back in Ghosts. That's one player who's not really quite happy with the situation on Rise.
Yeah.
I think if Isolation was making the move for him, that would probably be their best pickup, Jack.
Absolutely. Now, later on in the show, we're going to take a look at Isolation and their match they have tonight, break down what sub-players they can even have play in, what substitutes can fill that void there for their 4th spot. The other big question from this move, where does Parasite go? Here's one of, as we all said, the S&D best player of Season 1, best player of Season 2, very solid in uplink as well. Where do we see him wind up going? Do you have any predictions where he'll go, or do you think it's kind of just trying to hope to get on the Season 3 team?
I think after maybe 1 or 2 weeks, we might see him join a team as maybe a sub or something. Yeah. But, teams like Rise, teams like Orbit, these are teams that are, on the cusp of, top 8, bottom 4.
Yeah.
So if they start to struggle, Parasite obviously a top free agent. I'm surprised he's not on a Season 3 team. Very talented player. I thought Isolation was going to work out fine, but I was wrong.
We said on the show, the number one thing that worries us is team chemistry. And in 48 hours, it already wasn't working out. Now, the final question we have to go over really is, what can Isolation achieve now in Season 3? Right now, as we said, they're sitting at a 2-3 record in 8th place, so they're right on the cusp of making the playoffs versus not. Where do you wind up seeing this team going? Do you think they have the core 3-man to get a 4th and really mold them into the player they need, or is it going to be kind of floundering off from here, finishing in 9th through 12th spot?
I think the core 3 of Dito, Havoc, and Silly, right now, depending on who they pick up, really are 7, 8, 9, 10 in that quadrant of the standings. If they're able to pick up a star player, you know, a big free agent, maybe like even pick up Apathy or something from Rise, then that team can start to progress into top 5, maybe even top 4. It's tough with, you know, top 4 being OG, FaZe, Denial, and Envy, really.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I think that core 3 is good enough just to squeak into the playoffs, but we'll have to see who they pick up in the coming weeks. Absolutely.
Now, one more thing to talk about is, you mentioned, where does Parasite go? Rise, Orbit, one of these teams that might be struggling a little bit or have room for a superstar player like him. But it's not like bringing on a player who's just going to mold into a team or go along with what they've been doing. Parasite's going to join your team, and within an hour of joining, already be giving ideas on what to fix, already be kind of giving his thoughts in maybe a less than a fully pleasant way to ensure that they have the best chance at winning. And when people start to disagree with each other, that's really where the emotions begin to implode. So, Isolation, needing a 4th player, Parasite now gone. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. Next up, though, the part I'm excited about, are power rankings for what we've seen so far in Season 3. Now, Max, make sure I'm correct on this. This isn't necessarily where they're sitting right now.
Correct.
It's just kind of where we think they should be or how they've shown up so far in Season 3, right?
Right. So analyzing the team so far, we did top 8 for our power rankings. Yep. You know, just looking at the top 8 teams of Season 3, some of their records really aren't a display of, you know, how strong the teams are. Some, you know, records are a little misrevealing. Yep. So taking a look at our Season 3 standings before we get into our power rankings, you see at first, obviously, the Green Wall sitting at 6-0, followed by the Wolfpack Denial. After that, shaky 3-0 over FaZe last night at 5-1. FaZe Clan sitting at 4-2. And then Optic Nation, Team Envy, and Orbit round out your top 6, Jack.
There's a look at your top 6. Now our 7th through 12th place teams. TCM sitting at 2-2. Isolation, we've been talking about at the 2-3 record. Elevate, surprisingly, at 2-3 as well. TK struggling, especially in Hardpoint at 2-4. Rise on that 5-match skid, now at 1-5. And finally, the last team who has yet to get a win in Season 3, Epsilon North America. Their squad with only winning a 1/3 of their games they play. So that's a look at our standings. Now we're going to hop into the power rankings themselves. First, though, Max, what are the 4 teams we think don't deserve to be in this top 8 spot?
I mean, Epsilon...
Or haven't shown up enough to be in the top 8.
Right. So, Epsilon, 0-5.
Yeah.
What's shocking, though, is they've won more maps than Rise has in 11th place. At 11 is Rise.
That's because they've had 3 Game 5s.
Right.
And they've lost all 3, which is...
At 11 is Rise. At 10 is TK. And then followed at 9. Isolation not quite cracking that top 8. But getting into our first top 8 team from our power rankings, coming in number 8 is actually 4th place Optic Nation.
Yeah.
The roster of Mochilla, Embos, Ricky, and Miracles, as you see on your screen right there. Some notable matchups. They 3-0 Rise, they 3-1 TK, and they beat Epsilon 3-2 in a very close series. They lose to Envious 2-3 and Elevate. They get swept by them 0-3. But now, looking at those notable matchups first, Jack, their 3 wins are against 3 bottom teams in the Pro League.
Yeah, and that's something really big to point out. When you go and look at college football, they always give them rankings based on what their future schedule looks like, who they've beaten to get to that 12-0 record maybe in that league. This is exactly what we're doing here. Optic Nation, yes, positive record. Yes, they're in 4th place. But Rise, who's 1-5, TK, who's 2-4, and Epsilon, who's 0-5, those teams are struggling to say the least, and they basically got their wins off of them. But when Optic Nation had to face other teams who are really showing up so far in Season 3, Elevate 3-0'd them, and Elevate's really been struggling on their own merit, and we'll talk about that soon.
Right.
On the other side of things, Envy beat them 3-2. Their best game type, S&D, with an overall record of 4-3, so you can see their map counts, not the most pretty if that's their best game type, a 1.18 team KD, and Recovery is their best map in that game mode. And then finally, their Week 4 schedule, they're going to be away at Isolation, home versus Optic Gaming, and then home versus Denial a scary set of teams there for next week, especially the OG and Denial matches.
Yeah, I even say the Isolation match will be tough. Despite the fact that Isolation are still looking for a fourth player, I still think that core three of Havoc, Silly, and Dito give Optic Nation a run for their money.
Yeah.
But that's really the most shocking one. ON sitting in fourth place, they fall all the way down to our 8th place in our power rankings, Jack.
Yeah, so one thing that I've been looking at with this team, and you can kind of talk on this a little bit more, it seems like ON is a squad where if they can't match the slang of their opponents, they really just begin to lose those respawn game modes, especially Hardpoint. We're taking a look at, they played Compound the other day, the new DLC map. They need their sub players to really match the opposing teams, and it's just, at times, you see Mbos struggling. He's someone that needs to get more consistent, especially in the respawn game modes, if ON wants to begin beating those higher tier teams.
Mochilla picking up for Season 3 relegation was a huge pickup for them, improving in all game modes.
Yep.
You would think he just improved in, respawn. S&D doing a great job. But like you said, Jack, players like Mbos and Ricky, usually you see one player doing well, one player struggling. When they're consistent, they do well. Miracle's that aggressive SMG, always in your face, putting up big numbers.
Yep.
But if this team, over the next couple weeks, this week 4 schedule, very tough matches ahead of them, I could even see them losing all 3, Jack.
Yeah, I think that this team, my number one thing for them to look at is consistency. It's said a lot, but honestly, when you think of ON, it's an inconsistent team, even the brand itself, since its very beginning. This was a team that had Karma and TP on it with Killa and Mir just a few months ago. Everyone thought this team's going to be absolutely nuts.
Right.
And then they really just fell short. Team communication didn't really wind up working out there. Optic Nation in your 8th spot for the power rankings. Max, where do you see this team ending up? Do you think they wind up moving up the ladder, or do you think they kind of hover in this maybe top 8, just narrowly making the playoff spot?
Week 4 will be tough. I think that's a big indicator of how they finish in Season 3. They haven't made the playoffs at all so far in AW Pro League. They're hoping Season 3 is completely different, but 3 wins against the bottom 3 teams, I'm not really sold on this team making the playoffs right away.
So Optic Nation, 3-2 right now, haven't really shown their full potential as of yet. They lost to Elevate, they lost to Envy. Speaking of Elevate, let's head into our 7th power ranking spot. That is the Elevate squad, consisting of Slacked, Classic, Saints, and TJ Halley. Max, they're 9th right now in Season 3. Do you think they deserve to be in that spot?
No, I don't think so. They have some tough losses. They got swept by FaZe 0-3, team we just saw beat Optic Gaming, UMG Dallas, very handedly.
Arguably the hottest team in COD right now.
Exactly. Wolfpack, Denial, also not an easy matchup.
Yep.
Some notable wins, they beat Optic Nation 3-0, and Optic Nation are a top 4 team right now, or top 4 team, excuse me. And then game type S&D, that's their best game mode. Also, same record as Optic Nation, sitting at 4-3. Their team KD is not as good at 0.98, but their best map is Skyrise, which is showing you that this team is really adapting to the new DLC maps. Also, it's Modern Warfare 2 remake map. So, when you're good on these new DLC maps coming in, you have a better advantage over the teams. And looking at their Week 4 schedule, they face Orbit at home. Then they go to Optic Gaming, will then return home to play Rise and TK. Now, this Week 4 schedule, Jack, I could see Elevate going 3-1 easily.
This is like a make or break week for Elevate because they could easily go 3-1 or give Optic Gaming a run for their money. TJ Halley, we did a spotlight on him the other day, having a monster Season 3 so far. If you look at those teams, Team Orbit, a squad that's been struggling right now in Season 3. Also TK struggling again. Their hardpoint game right now is abysmal, something they really need to work on. I know Sharp has said, I'm done playing Counter-Strike. I'm strictly focusing on COD. We need to practice. We need to improve. And then finally, Rise. Their final team they're going to be facing, obviously, Apathy right now on that Rise lineup. TJ, the new 4th for Elevate that happened in the last, 48, 30, 72 hours? Last couple days. That's another match that they can easily take. So I think this is a week where Elevate needs to clutch up. They need to go 3-1. If they can take Optic Gaming down, give them their first loss, end the week 4-0, I think they'll be top 3.
Easily.
Yeah.
But really, picking up TJ Halley was huge for this team.
Yeah.
Obviously, Slacked and Classic after X Games, they dropped Temp and TJ.
Absolutely.
They go out and pick up 2 big free agents in Saints and Apathy, but things weren't quite working with Apathy. They had a great UMG Dallas going 4-0, 12-0 in map count in their pool, but they end up losing the next 2 matches in bracket play. Finished top 12, not the finish for the Red Rebellion that they actually wanted.
Yeah.
But this next week for the Red Rebellion will be really, really proving if this team can finish top 4 in the Pro League.
I got the opportunity to interview Slack at UMG Dallas, and he said, Apathy is our player that's really impressed us this weekend. Within a day later, he was dropped from the squad. So you could see there was something going on there that they needed to move on with. They felt more comfortable with TJ. Fully expect Elevate to improve, but it really depends how much are they going to improve. Do you think this Elevate squad could be a top 5 team?
Easily. I think so. When you look at the top 4, I really think of OG, FaZe, Denial, Envy. Elevate, they can make a run with Envy for top 4, but we're just going to take a look at this next week, see how the matches play out, because nothing's certain. But going into our number 6 team, Team Orbit.
Yeah.
Sitting at currently 8th place in Season 3. You see the roster right there. Facento, Burns, Accuracy, and Happy didn't have the best UMG Dallas, but you see some notable matchup wins in Season 3 so far. They take out Envy as 3-2. That was a huge matchup for them. They 3-0 TCM. That was also big. But unfortunately, when you take a look at their losses, they get swept by the Wolfpack, and then they get crushed by the Green Wall 3-1.
Oh, absolutely. There's their best game type. Search and Destroy, 5-3 overall record in that game mode. Riot's their best map, 0.95 team KD, worse than the 2 squads before them in Optic Nation and Elevate. Finally, their Week 4 schedule. Elevate, they're facing away. Rise in a home match, and then FaZe away as well. Right now, they're sitting at 8th place with the 6th power rank. When I look at this squad on paper, I think this is a team that really has a lot of potential. It really comes down to their teamwork, how much they're able to practice these new game types. They're still a little uncomfortable, especially on Drift Hardpoint. Burns was saying, pulling out the barrel feels extremely unnatural for him. How are they going to fix that? How are they really going to get that map handled? Because we're going to be seeing that a lot more in Season 3 and into the playoffs. Another thing to look at with this team, how are they just going to begin to mesh? And in these coming weeks, how are they going to take down the teams that on paper are better than them? Obviously, Accuracy and Happy, 2 very strong players. But when you think of a team like FaZe, can you see them matching up against them well?
I mean, they played OG this past week, and I mean, they blew them out in the first hardpoint, which was shocking.
Yeah.
Facento on host went absolutely off, and then you see them lose S&D within like 4 minutes, 6-0.
Yep.
S&D really has been the backbone of this team since Season 3 relegation. They went, I believe, 8-2 in S&D at Season 3 relegation, and then, I mean, if they can pull off hardpoint maps like they did against OG and just not really crumble in the rest of the series, Orbit for me is a top 8 team. This week, though, Elevate, very tough matchup. Rise, TCM has been going off for that team as well.
Yep.
So that's also, I wouldn't give that one right away to Orbit. And then FaZe, that's their hardest match of the week.
Exactly.
So
when you think of next week, do you think that we're going to see them go 3-0, or are they going to go 0-3? Where do you think you see them sitting?
I mean, I think Rise, I would say that's their best shot at getting a map, or a win, excuse me. And then Elevate, that'll be like your, that's really tough.
Yeah.
And then FaZe is just like, well, if you get a map, good job. But very tough matches for them.
Exactly.
So
I'm sitting at them 1-2 in next week's matches.
I'd put money on that as well.
Elevate, looking so good now with TJ Halley. Expect them to absolutely improve. I do believe their match against Rise will go in their favor for Orbit.
Right.
But then FaZe are just steamrolling right now. Fully expect to see them take down Orbit. That was a look at our 6th power rank team. Now let's head into number 5, TCM. With the new pickups of Aches and TP, this squad has had a complete overhaul with Jerd and Moose, the veteran European players, now playing in the North American Pro League. Their notable matchup wins, Denial 3-2, happened just the other night in round 11, game 5. Isolation 3-1. On the other side of things, their loss to Orbit really hurt them earlier on in the season. And then finally, Optic Gaming beat them 3-1.
Yeah, and then taking a look at their best game type, it's actually Hardpoint. 4-3 overall record.
Well, when you get Jerd on a team, he's pretty good at that game mode.
A .96 team overall KD. And then their best map is Compound, one of the new DLC maps in Season 3. And then taking a look at their Week 4 schedule, they'll go up against the Red Militia at home. Then they'll travel to Epsilon, North America, and then come back home to face the Boys in Blue and Team Envious. I mean, we moved them up 1 spot from their actual ranking in Season 3 so far. But this is a team that really they've made it work so far. They have a 2-3 record, but it's not really, I think, descriptive of how good this team is. We saw them at UMG Dallas, a very strong S&D team. I believe they went 8-0 overall in S&D.
Exactly.
TP was at the forefront of that. And I think once this team, gels a little bit more going forward, this team can make top 8 easily.
Oh, absolutely. And looking at their best game type, it really doesn't surprise me at all. Compound Hardpoint, Aches has been electric on that map. A lot of pro players have been saying it plays like a Black Ops 2 style map. You need to anchor. You need that sub who could stay alive inside the hill. When you have a player like Jerd who loves getting in those engagements where you need to twitch and react as soon as possible, that plays right into his play style. Doesn't surprise me at all. They're sitting at 2-0 in the game mode. Expect to see them dominate in that all season long. Now, TP, I got to speak to him prior to the UMG Dallas. He said the player on our team, if he plays consistently for us, we will do very well, is Moose. And we mentioned right now the second highest KD on this squad. If he can drop over 30 kills at least per respawn, which obviously he should be able to, but really if it gets more towards the 35 number, like some of the highest and best slayers in the league do, you'll see TCM absolutely move into this top 5. Honestly, you got Aches, you got TP. All 4 of these guys, veteran players, they can handle those intense situations better than any other. And when it comes down to crunch time, don't sleep on TCM.
Yeah, one of the most composed duos in all of competitive Call of Duty, in Aches and TP. And really, we've seen great things out of Moose. We've seen some not so great things out of him.
Yeah.
You know, one thing comes to mind is 11 kill streak against Optic Gaming,
which was nuts.
Right, they're able to take that hard point, and they kind of just let the rest of the series fall away. Their uplink goes, you know, kind of badly in overtime, but that's TCM. Going into Boys in Blue, Team Envy as they come in at number 4, Jack.
Yeah, prior to getting into Team Envy, we're going to quickly take a look back at what we've seen so far. Obviously, the 4 teams we don't have in our power rankings at the moment, Epsilon, TK, Rise, and Isolation.
Right.
Then Optic Nation in 8th, Elevate in 7th, Orbit in 6th, and TCM in 5th. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, our top 4 power ranking teams.